Joe Flacco he's a bit of a luxury. Okay, he gives the Colts peace in not playing Anthony Richardson. Okay, like the Colts know that if Anthony Richardson isn't 100% or whatever, that Joe Flacco can go out there and play well enough to give the Colts a chance, and that is a luxury because there are a lot of teams in the NFL that don't have that in their backup quarterback, and luxuries are great. When I was growing up, my great grandma reached a point where she couldn't drive anymore, and she was kind enough to give her car, 2004 Toyota Corolla, a real, babe magnet. She gave her car to my family. And she made it clear that it was supposed to be driven by her great grandkids. So me and my three siblings, my youngest brother, Nate, he still drives that car 20 years later after it was made. And it was a real luxury for my family. My siblings and I, we didn't have to borrow one of my parents' cars whenever we needed to go somewhere or wanted to go do something. And when my dad's car broke down, it became a real luxury because he was then able to use this 2004 Toyota Corolla that my siblings and I had been using. Luxuries are nice. Having extra things that are reliable is nice. And Joe Flacco is a nice luxury for the Colts to have when they occasionally need to rely on him when Anthony Richardson is broken down. The Colts have the luxury and had the luxury yesterday of sitting Anthony Richardson because Joe Flacco has been good enough in the games that he's played. When he came in against the Steelers, he did just enough not to blow the game. Against the Jaguars, he looked superhuman because he played against the worst passing defense in the NFL. This week, against the Titans secondary that led the NFL in fewest passing yards allowed per game entering the game against the Colts, he didn't look so superhuman. To be fair, Joe Flacco still played well enough to win. He was 22 of 38, which was only a 58% completion percentage. I believe that if Anthony Richardson played a game and had a completion percentage that low, a lot of people would be upset. But since the 39-year-old quarterback, who would be out of the league if it wasn't for the Colts, because the Colts were the only team this offseason to offer him a contract, did it, because that 39-year-old did it. It's one of the best performances we've seen in decades, right? According to some crazy Colts fans. In addition to Joe Flacco's 58% completion percentage, he threw for a whopping 189 yards. His yards per attempt was only 5, which is that's terrible. And he threw two touchdowns and one horrendously bad interception. Luckily, though, the Colts were playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. Will Levis is awful. I think we all knew that before the game even started. Okay? And as unimpressive as Joe Flacco was, because he wasn't bad, he was just unimpressive, Will Levis was straight up bad. And the Titans clearly don't trust him to throw the football. We saw why. Their first drive, when they ran the ball for 7 yards, and then on 2nd and 3, they threw a screen pass that went for 0 yards, and then they ran another screen pass that went for 0 yards. It became evident in that moment how little the Titans trust Will Levis to throw the ball past the line of scrimmage. Anyway, Joe Flacco is good enough to play when Anthony Richardson is out. But the ceiling of the offense when he's in is incredibly low. It's a lot of short throws, right, which are nice, but it's just not sustainable. It's hard to score when you're only picking up 5 yards a play. It's hard in the NFL to go on 10-plus play drives and score. It's incredibly difficult. And when Joe Flacco is in, that is how the Colts have to score. Look at all 4 of the Colts scoring drives yesterday. All 4 of them consisted of 10 plays or more. And they only scored 20 points. That's it. That's not very many points. It's hard to score a bunch when you aren't explosive. To have an elite offense, which with this defense, the Colts need or are going to need against better teams, you have to be explosive offensively. And Joe Flacco just doesn't provide that. He doesn't, right? He doesn't hit big throws down the field. Okay. The run game with him in isn't as good. I know Jonathan Taylor's been out, but if Anthony Richardson was in, the run game would be better because he's a threat to run. And obviously he can run it himself and all these things. I think that, you and I can agree on, even if you think that Joe Flacco is the better quarterback. Okay. Joe Flacco can win games against the Titans and the Jaguars. Okay. If Joe Flacco enters a game and the Colts already have a lead, he can do enough to hold on to it. But if Flacco, if he has to play again next week against the Dolphins, then the Colts will be fine because the Dolphins might be the worst team in the NFL. Actually, that's not true. It's the Tennessee Titans, but that's beside the point. Then, like I said, the Colts will be fine if for some reason Flacco has to play quarterback again next week. But the following week, when the Colts go on the road to play the Texans again, if Joe Flacco runs out there, the Colts will undoubtedly get their doors blown off. They aren't explosive enough offensively with him in the game to beat the better teams. They played against one of the better pass defenses in the NFL yesterday, and Joe Flacco wasn't very good. Okay, while Joe Flacco is a luxury as a backup quarterback, the second best backup in the NFL behind Jake Browning of the Cincinnati Bengals, while he's a luxury and while he's done a good job these last 2.5 games and while he's reliable, the Colts still clearly need Anthony Richardson if they want to beat the better teams in the NFL. They barely beat the Titans yesterday. Let that sink in. The Titans are bad. Okay, and they barely beat them. They didn't run the ball well. They didn't throw the ball particularly well. The reason why the Colts won yesterday is because Will Levis is awful and because Shane Steichen is simply a better coach than Brian Callahan. As of right now, Brian Callahan hasn't coached in very many games. He'll get better as time goes on. Right? But the Colts won this game because Will Levis is terrible and because of coaching. While Joe Flacco outplaying Will Levis did play a role, a rather large role, in the Colts win yesterday, I would be wrong to ignore Shane Steichen's contribution. Okay, and part of that's play calling, but I really want to talk about more than just the way that he called plays. Okay, with that being said, though, I thought he called plays well. The first drive when the Colts have everything scripted out, those drives every single week have been things of beauty. Okay, that opening drive that's scripted always seems to look good from the Colts. The naked bootleg to Michael Pittman Jr. late in the game to pick up a first down before the 2-minute warning, that was great. That was a great play call. Okay, that was the perfect time to take the risk. It was clear that the Titans were selling out to the run. They got one-on-one coverage, play action, Michael Pittman Jr. running a little crosser, Joe Flacco, good throw, good catch, first down, ball game. Okay, I thought he was aggressive, Shane Steichen. I thought he was aggressive at the right times, and I thought he was conservative at the right times. More than that, though, the real reason why the Colts won yesterday is because the Colts were more disciplined than the Tennessee Titans were. The Colts committed 5 penalties yesterday and gave up 40 yards off of them. The Tennessee Titans committed 11 penalties and gave up 113 yards off of them. That was a major difference in the game. The fact that the Colts were disciplined enough not to jump off sides, not to, false start, not to commit a bad defensive pass interference. They didn't do anything like that. And when you look at the Colts and how they scored the football, a large part of it was because of the penalties that the Titans committed. On the Colts' 5th possession, they kicked a field goal to tie the game at 10 apiece. It only happened because Tennessee committed a pass interference that wiped a Joe Flacco interception off the board. Okay, on the Colts drive that allowed them to kick a second field goal and make the game 17-13. It only happened because of another pass interference penalty on Tennessee and a roughing the passer penalty on Tennessee. Okay, that was 20 yards right there. That's a fifth of the football field. On the Colts' second touchdown drive, the one where Michael Pittman Jr. went up and made a great play, made a tough contested catch in the back of the end zone. The only reason why that happened is because L'Jarius Sneed committed a pass interference that resulted in a 33-yard penalty that moved the Colts into the red zone. 6 plays later, 6 plays in the red zone is nuts. 6 plays later, the Colts scored a touchdown. 3 of the Colts' 4 scoring drives were majorly aided by the Tights committing undisciplined penalties. Say what you want about Gus Bradley and his high school defense and how all he does is run cover 3. The Colts and Titans both played a lot of man-to-man defense yesterday with their corners. The Colts' discipline and being able to not play with their hands and not, grab receivers too early or anything like that was a major difference in the game. Samuel Womack is awesome. He played so well. Calvin Ridley was targeted 8 times yesterday and didn't have a reception because Samuel Womack did a really good job covering him. Not really good. He did a fantastic job covering him. Jalen Jones got away with a defensive pass interference late against DeAndre Hopkins, but actually, it wasn't defensive pass interference because if it was, then the referees would have thrown a flag. Okay. Right. Jalen Jones and Womack both played very well yesterday. Okay. But a large part of that was the discipline to not get too grabby. That doesn't need to be overlooked. It's a large part of why the Colts won. Disciplined teams don't commit penalties. They don't. And that discipline starts at the top with head coach Shane Steichen. Okay. I thought he had the Colts ready to go.